The cold metal floor hummed beneath Elias Voss's boots. He'd woken in a steel cell, stripped of weapons, stripped of command. His crew lay scattered around him, groggy, bruised, and just as confused. Above them, strange glyphs glowed in pulsing red. He touched the wall, warm. Alive, almost. A grinding hiss echoed. A panel slid open, revealing a tall, gaunt creature with translucent scales and lidless black eyes. Its voice buzzed from a speaker implant. "You will fight." Voss rose slowly. "Fight who?" The alien tilted its head, studying him with clinical detachment. "Not who." "What?" The floor trembled. The cells split apart like peeling fruit, and they were pushed into blinding light. An enormous arena stretched out, towering stands packed with creatures of every shape and color. The crowd roared, a wall of noise so loud it vibrated in his chest. His crew formed up instinctively. Ramirez at his side, grim-faced. Kara glancing around, calculating. Lin and Okoye already scanning for exits. None. Just walls too smooth to climb. "Guess we're the entertainment," Ramirez muttered. A deep horn blared. Across the arena, a heavy gate rose. The ground shook. Chains rattled. Then silence. A shape moved in the shadows, massive, low to the ground. It stepped into the light. It wasn't just big. It was nightmare-given flesh. 6 legs, bristling spines, slavering jaws dripping a thick, steaming fluid that hissed on the sand. Its eyes, all 12 of them, locked on the humans. The crowd screamed for blood. Voss didn't move. Neither did his team. He could feel their tension, but also their training. No one broke formation. The creature charged, surprisingly fast for something so large. Voss barked, "Scatter!" They broke apart, the monster surging toward Ramirez. He dodged, barely missing the thing's snapping jaws. Kara shouted from behind a broken pillar. "We can't kill that head on!" "I know," Voss replied, his mind working furiously. The creature's weight cracked the arena floor. Its talons tore furrows in the sand. But it was following predictable patterns. It charged straight. No sudden shifts. No intelligence. "Blind instinct," he murmured. Okoye called out, "I think I see weak points in the leg joints." "Too risky," Voss answered. "It's armored everywhere. We need to outthink it." The creature lunged for Lin. She rolled, came up behind it, and threw a sharp piece of debris at its flank. It didn't even flinch. Voss scanned the arena, pillars, broken statues, a ridge of jagged rocks. No weapons. Just debris. The monster pivoted. Its tail lashed, clipping Kara, sending her flying. She hit hard but gave a thumbs up, still alive. They couldn't do this forever. Voss shouted, "Heard it!" They moved like clockwork, each baiting the beast and retreating, guiding it toward the jagged ridge. The thing snarled, losing patience, snapping at each human but always being just out of reach. The crowd's roars turned into murmurs. They wanted blood. They got strategy. They didn't like it. The monster slammed into a pillar. The stone cracked but didn't fall. "Lin!" Voss barked. "On me!" They sprinted together, leading the beast straight toward the tallest, weakest-looking pillar. "Ramirez, Kara, force it!" Ramirez hurled debris at its head. Kara ran in close, slashing at its forelimb with a jagged shard, making it whirl in fury. It charged again, straight for Voss and Lin. "Now!" Voss shouted. They dove aside at the last second. The monster's mass collided with the pillar. The structure groaned and buckled. Tons of stone cascaded down. The beast shrieked, pinned under rubble. But not dead. It heaved, trying to push free. Voss didn't hesitate. He scrambled up the pile of broken stone, and jammed a sharp fragment deep into one of the creature's eyes. It convulsed violently. The arena floor trembled with its death throes. Silence fell. The crowd didn't cheer. They stared. Voss stood, bloody, breathing hard. He turned slowly toward the viewing platform. He couldn't see faces, but he knew they were watching. He pointed up at them with the bloodied shard. You wanted monsters? He said, his voice carrying into the quiet. Careful what you wish for. A low murmur rippled through the audience. The floor beneath them began to lower. The fight was over. For now. Back in their cells, Voss checked his team. Minor injuries. Shaken, but alive. Kara wiped blood from her lip. That was insane. Ramirez sat down heavily. They expected us to panic. They wanted screaming victims. Voss nodded. They underestimated us. The same gaunt creature appeared again outside their cell. You survive, it said flatly. No thanks to you. Voss shot back. You will fight again. Stronger prey. Good, Voss said, stepping forward until they were nose to glass. So will we. The alien studied him for a moment. Then it left. Lynn sat cross-legged, staring at the ceiling. They're going to keep pushing us. Voss leaned against the wall. Until we break. Or until we break them. Kara looked up. Can we? He didn't smile. Just answered. We will. Ramirez exhaled. Monsters, huh? Voss met his eyes. Let's show them what that word really means. The next time they woke, it wasn't to a cell. They stood on cold stone under artificial skies, the arena twice the size of before. High walls rose around them, sharp and polished, no footholds. Dozens of alien species surrounded them on elevated platforms, staring down in silence. No roars this time. Only curiosity. A booming voice echoed from unseen speakers. Doom match. A gate opened. But this time, it wasn't one creature. It was 10. Each one grotesque in different ways. Muscles twisted beyond reason, metal fused with bone, shrieking mouths lined with jagged teeth. Eyes replaced with sensors. No natural instinct left. Pure engineered violence. They unleashed them all at once. Voss whispered. They're testing us. Ramirez tensed beside him. Not testing. Displaying. Stay tight. No lone wolves, Voss ordered. The abominations charged. Kara broke left, Voss right. They dodged, evaded, but two creatures closed in on Lynn. Ramirez fired a piece of debris like a spear, skewering one through the throat. It staggered, fell twitching. The other lunged, Voss hit it with a heavy stone, crushing the sensor eye. Blind and disoriented, it stumbled long enough for Kara to bury a shard deep into its throat. They regrouped. Voss scanned the edges. No weapons by design. The Dominion wanted them desperate. They want chaos, Okoye said between breaths. Let's give them order, Voss answered. One of the beasts pounced, and he ducked. It sailed over his head, smashing into another. They tore each other apart in blind fury. The arena floor shook with snarls and shrieks. Voss locked eyes with Kara. She nodded. They ran. Not from fear, toward opportunity. A broken column at the far end leaned precariously. Voss shoved. It fell, crushing two abominations. Use their weight against them, he yelled. Ramirez baited one monster into charging, then leapt aside. The thing crashed into the wall at full force, breaking its spine. Another creature, faster and more agile, locked onto Kara. It feinted right, then left. She misstepped. It tackled her, slamming her into the ground. She gasped, struggling. Voss didn't think. He sprinted and leapt, grabbing the creature's back, jamming his fingers into exposed wiring along its neck. Sparks flew. The thing convulsed. He tore free a bundle of cables, and it collapsed. Kara coughed, rolled to her feet. I'm fine. Voss nodded. No time for concern. Only 3 left. One circled them, low and feral, waiting for weakness. The other 2 tore apart the corpses of their fallen. They learn, Lynn whispered. Voss realized she was right. These weren't just beasts, they adapted. They'd watched human tactics and mirrored them. We end this fast, he said. The circling one lunged again. Ramirez stepped in with a feint, then ducked as Voss hurled a jagged stone straight into its gaping maw. It choked, stumbled, and Kara sliced across its tendon. It collapsed in a heap. 2 remained. They stood side by side now, wary, calculating. Okoye whispered. They're coordinating. Good, Boss murmured. So do we. He gestured subtly. Kara understood. She took position near the wall. Ramirez circled wide. Voss and Lin advanced slowly. One of the creatures charged Voss directly, but halfway there, it veered toward Kara. She spun, dodging at the last second. The creature crashed into the wall and rebounded. The second one came for Ramirez. He didn't run. He stood his ground. At the last moment, he dropped and swept the creature's legs out from under it. It landed hard. Voss pounced, driving a piece of broken metal into its throat. It spasmed once, then lay still. The last creature roared in fury, the sound deafening. It turned and charged blindly. Voss didn't move. He waited. At the last second, he stepped aside. The creature slammed headfirst into the stone barrier and crumpled, twitching. Silence fell again. No cheers. Only a lone murmur of confusion from the audience. This wasn't what they expected. Voss turned, scanning for cameras. We're not here for your amusement, he said softly. The floor shifted beneath them. A hatch opened. Not back to cells this time. They were lowered into a chamber, part staging ground, part observation room. Screens lined the walls, showing replays of their fight from every angle. A door opened. Overlord Korvash entered. 7 feet tall, scaled, eyes cold as void. Flanked by guards in ornate armor. He studied them in silence. Voss stared back without blinking. You are not what we expected, Korvash finally said. Voss shrugged. We rarely are. Korvash's nostrils flared. You survive through deception and coordination, not strength. We survive, Voss said evenly. That's all that matters. The Overlord's gaze hardened. We will escalate. Voss didn't look away. So will we. Korvash hissed softly, almost amusement. He turned and left. After the door sealed, Kara exhaled. We're in their heads. Voss nodded. Not enough. We need more. Ramirez frowned. More what? Information. Access. Weaknesses. He pointed to the screens. They record everything. Which means they have blind spots somewhere. Lin tapped a console. Locked out. But maybe. She trailed off, staring at patterns in the glyphs. Talk to me, Voss prompted. Repetition in their encryption. Lazy programming. I might be able to exploit it. Given time. We'll buy you that time. Kara leaned against the wall, wiping sweat and blood from her brow. They think we're animals in a pit. Let's remind them we build traps. Voss met her eyes. Starting now. The chamber door hissed open again. Guards motioned for them to follow. Voss glanced at his team. No words needed. They moved as one. They followed the guards through narrow corridors of dark alloy that pulsed faintly with power. The architecture felt less like design, more like something grown. Voss counted steps, turns, angles, mapping the place in his mind. He felt the others doing the same. They didn't need to discuss it. The guards herded them into a wide chamber with transparent walls on 3 sides. Beyond the glass, hundreds of species observed. Some with disdain, others with curiosity. A few looked genuinely fearful. A pedestal rose in the center of the room, a floating orb of shifting light hovering above it. Korvash's voice filled the space. This is the trial of understanding. Voss's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? The orb pulsed. Tendrils of energy lanced out, connecting to each human's forehead. Images flooded Voss's mind, alien languages, history, tactical data. A flood of knowledge forced into his brain, overwhelming but fragmented. Ramirez gasped, gripping his head. Kara staggered. Lin bit down on her lip until it bled. The energy ceased. Korvash appeared on a raised balcony. You now possess what few slaves are given, comprehension. You understand our order, our power. You will use this in your final proving. A heavy door opened beneath them, the floor tilting until they slid down into darkness. They landed hard on coarse ground. Voss rose slowly. His head still throbbed from the forced data, but he forced focus. The cavern stretched wide, dimly lit by glowing veins in the rock. Movement. From the shadows stepped other prisoners. Not human, alien captives from other conquests. Some limped, scarred, and broken. Others stood tall, wary, and watchful. A massive quadruped with armored plates spoke in halting trade language. You fight. Dominion? Voss nodded. We fight everyone who chains us. A slender being with 6 eyes hissed. They force us to fight you next. Kara stepped forward. Not happening. Voss raised his hand. We don't fight each other. We fight them. The gathered captives shifted, uncertain. Centuries of oppression made hope fragile. The quadruped's deep voice rumbled again. They punish rebellion. They punish survival too, Voss said quietly. What difference does it make? Silence. Lin whispered. If they test understanding, then maybe they're not expecting unity. Voss seized on that. They want spectacle. We'll give them something they can't control. The ground shook. Loud clanks sounded above. The ceiling panels slid open. Massive metal constructs dropped into the cavern, towering war machines, bristling with energy weapons and whirring blades. A voice boomed. Commence extermination. The machines advanced. Voss turned to the gathered aliens. Fight with us or die alone. The quadruped roared and charged, slamming into the nearest war machine. Sparks showered. The others followed, attacking with claws, venom, energy blasts. Voss and his team sprinted toward the closest mech. Kara leapt onto its back, jamming a rock into a joint, forcing the limb to seize. Ramirez swung a length of piping like a club, smashing sensors. Lin dodged a plasma blast and hurled debris into exposed vents. The machine toppled with a shriek of bending metal. Another unit pivoted, firing into the crowd. Aliens scattered, but several fell. Voss grabbed a broken power cable from the downed machine, stripped the insulation with his teeth, and jammed the sparking wire into the exposed undercarriage of the second mech. It convulsed and collapsed, smoking. More dropped from above. 6, 8, 10 machines. Ramirez cursed. Too many! Not if we think smarter. Voss shot back. Lin pointed. Look, that conduit feeds them power. A thick cable snaked from the cavern wall into a distribution node. Voss didn't hesitate. Kara, cover me. He sprinted across open ground, plasma bolts striking around him. He dove, rolled, yanked the conduit loose. The machines shuddered. 2 fell dead on the spot. But 3 switched to internal power cells and surged forward. The quadruped, bleeding from multiple wounds, slammed into one mech, dragging it down with brute force. Blades tore into its flesh, but it refused to let go. Hold the line! Voss shouted. He ripped a shard of metal from the ground and used it as a pry bar, jamming open the power node. Sparks flew wildly. Lin arrived, panting. I can overload it. Do it, Voss urged. She worked fast, fingers nimble despite the chaos. The node began to hum ominously. Clear out! She shouted. The cavern erupted in a fireball of raw energy. The remaining machines froze, systems fried. When the smoke cleared, silence. Bodies littered the ground, both metal and flesh. Voss coughed, helping Kara to her feet. The quadruped lay dying. It lifted its head weakly. You are monsters. Voss knelt beside it. No. We're human. The creature gave a low laugh and went still. Above them, silence on the observation decks. Then Korvash's voice. Cold, sharp. This was not permitted. Voss looked up. Neither was enslaving us. Korvash's eyes narrowed. You will pay. Voss pointed at the observation window. You're afraid. I see it. We understand now. You control through spectacle and fear. But fear cuts both ways. The Overlord's nostrils flared. Return them to containment. Magnetic clamps engaged, pulling them toward an ascending platform. As they rose, Kara whispered, "They're losing control." Voss nodded. "We've shown them what monsters look like. Now we show them what monsters build." They rose through mechanical shafts, surrounded by silence more dangerous than roars. The Dominion watched them now not as prey but as a problem. Voss felt it in the way the guards no longer jeered, in the quiet tension before command decisions. The platform stopped. A vast chamber spread before them. No cages, no audience stands, only a cold metallic expanse. Massive doors lined the walls, each marked with symbols Voss could now read: weapon storage, vessel docks, core systems. Korvasha's voice crackled through unseen speakers. "You believe you've won something?" Voss raised his head. "We've won clarity. There will be no more tests. Only eradication." The doors slammed open. Not creatures. Troops. Hundreds of Dominion enforcers in black armor poured into the chamber. Heavy boots, energy rifles raised, cold discipline in every step. Voss turned to his team. "We don't run." Ramirez clenched his fists. "We make them regret." Kara adjusted the makeshift blade strapped to her wrist. "We break their line." The aliens advanced, formation perfect. "Close and disrupt," Voss said quietly. The first volley came. Plasma bolts screamed across the room. They sprinted low and fast, weaving between blasts. Kara reached the front line first, slamming into an enforcer with bone-breaking force, stealing his weapon before he hit the floor. Ramirez followed, smashing into two more, cracking visors with his fists. Voss tackled one from behind, ripping free its breathing apparatus, watching it choke. He spun, using the fallen enforcer's rifle, firing short, controlled bursts. But more poured in. They couldn't win by attrition. Lynn reached a console embedded in the wall, her fingers flying. "They locked me out," she hissed. "Override," Voss ordered. Ramirez grabbed a fallen energy pack, yanking cables and tossing the sparking battery into a cluster of advancing troops. The explosion tore bodies apart, scattering limbs and twisted armor. Lynn gasped. "I have partial access." Voss fought his way to her side. "What can you reach?" "Docking controls. Automated systems. And core overload protocols." Her voice shook. Kara spun, firing, covering them. "You're not thinking small, are you?" Voss's eyes locked on Lynn's. "We set the stage." She hesitated only a breath. "Say the word. Start the cascade. We're ending this." Lynn's fingers danced. Alarms shrieked. The floor trembled. Red strobes pulsed. Korvasha's voice returned, full of venom. "You dared destroy what you cannot comprehend?" Voss spoke calmly, knowing the Overlord could hear. "You made a mistake thinking survival was weakness." Gas vents hissed. Pressure builds surged through conduits. Bulkheads began to seal as systems failed. The enforcers faltered. Order fractured. Ramirez smashed another one aside. "They're panicking." Voss pointed toward the docking bay door, half-sealed, emergency lights flashing. "That's our exit." Kara led the charge. The Dominion lines broke at last, chaos ripping through their ranks. Enforcers turned on each other, shoving, firing without commands. They reached the threshold. Inside, sleek Dominion craft sat waiting, engines warm. "Lynn!" Voss shouted. She bolted to the closest vessel, hacking its panel with swift keystrokes. The hatch hissed open. They piled inside, Kara slamming the hatch closed behind them. Lynn dropped into the pilot's seat, sweat streaming down her temple. "I've never flown this class." "Learn fast," Voss said. The craft shuddered. Systems came online in Dominion glyphs that rearranged themselves into language she understood. Ramirez grabbed the co-pilot's console. "Shields active. Engines spooling." Korvasha's face filled the front screen. His composure cracked. Fury radiated off him. "You will never leave," he snarled. Voss met his gaze. "Watch us." The ship surged forward, smashing through collapsing doors as shockwaves rolled through the complex. Explosions tore the outer walls. In the rear cameras, the Dominion structure buckled, entire sections imploding in fire and metal. They broke atmosphere, the void swallowing them in silence. Course plotted, Lynn said, her voice shaking with adrenaline. Any pursuit? Kara asked. None, Ramirez confirmed. They're too busy dying. Voss exhaled slowly. Good. But Lynn's eyes widened. Wait. Something's wrong. The console pulsed with a message. Dominion distress beacons flared across multiple systems. Not just here. Everywhere. They weren't just watching, Lynn whispered. This was broadcast live, to all Dominion worlds. Kara's eyes narrowed. They showed off monsters. We showed them what monsters really do. Voss sat back, feeling the weight of it all. They hadn't just broken free. They had become a symbol. A new message flashed on the console. Unencrypted. Simple words in trade tongue. You are not alone. Voss smiled for the first time. Set course for wherever that signal came from, he said. Lynn nodded. The ship jumped into the black, leaving behind fire and ruin. And somewhere far beyond Dominion space, others waited, no longer afraid.